Hey, y'all, and welcome to another episode of the Millennial Management Podcast. I am your host, Brandy, the Millennial Manager, and today is motherfucking Friday, okay? It is Friday. It is such a relaxing day. We are not going to be stressing over bullshit. Do you understand? Okay? We are going to be relaxing mentally, whether you are at work or not. Do you understand? Thank you very much. A huge shout out to Patreon. Not only do they sponsor the podcast, of course, but they also help with today's topic. And we're going to be discussing performance reviews. And if you're not inside of Patreon, you should definitely join. It is $6 to join per month, which is low. You get early access to the podcast. You also get the video format of the podcast on Fridays. As well as the weekly lives. Okay. Now, this week, we are not doing our normal weekly live because we have our podcast event on Saturday night. So I am super, super excited for that. Thank you to everyone who has purchased a ticket. If you have not, please let me know. I will make sure that I include it in the information section of the podcast, and let's get going. Now, I want to talk about performance reviews, okay? Specifically, if you have had a negative performance review, and what are some things that we can do to not only just protect our mind space after hearing those things, because it is very hard to hear that you are not performing the way that the company decides that you need to perform, or that your manager has these standards for you, and maybe you just have not met them. Okay. And it is very hard to hear that, but sometimes it is the truth. It is accurate. Okay. So let's talk about what we do at first. The first thing we need to do is we need to listen to what was said. Okay. We need to decode the feedback. All right. We have to listen what is told to us. If they said that maybe you are a late arriver, you're not on time for work, which causes a delay for you to get started, which causes a delay for you to really be able to get moving inside of the workplace. And then also just to meet standards. If you have things due by 8:15, you cannot arrive at 8:15 and expect them to be done. We have to be realistic with our time. And so if you are someone who struggles with arriving to time or arriving to work on time, possibly making sure that we wake up at least 30 minutes earlier to give yourself a little room so that you can do the things that you need to do and still get to work on time. Okay. Now, how to analyze the review. You need to distinguish between constructive criticism and personal attack. Okay. If you have a negative relationship with your manager, some of the things that they may be saying they're not valid because the relationship is just not a positive one. And so you have to understand that some of this may be a personal attack. Okay. They don't like the way that you talk. All right. They don't like the way that you look when you come to work. Some of those things are personal attacks. But things that are of constructive criticism, they have to strictly do about your work performance. Do you understand me? Constructive criticism comes regarding the work. So if in your review, everything is personalized, then it has nothing to do with you. This is personal. This is not work related. And you have to know the difference between the two. Now, let's go back a little bit. The initial point of contact with a negative review can cause some hurt. It will cause anger, fear, confusion. Like you feel like, I'm going to lose my job if I don't get my shit together. Or maybe it's just like, how did this even happen? Like, I have tried to do these things. I've tried to meet these standards and I'm just not getting it. And you really need to sit with those emotions for real. Because if you respond in an emotional way, that is going to create a negative space for you. So you have to make sure that when you are responding, it is not in a negative manner. Always control your composure when you are given a negative review or any type of constructive criticism. Okay. Let's talk about my favorite thing, my favorite D word, and I'm not talking about damn. Okay. I am talking about documentation. Now, a good manager or someone, let's say it's your director who is doing your performance review, they should have some documentation to back up what they're saying. Do you understand me? If they do not have something to back up what they're saying, it is very hard for team members to digest what is being said, because you don't have any documented proof to support this claim to say that I have not been meeting standards, I have not been following instructions, I have not done whatever that thing is. Documentation is very important. They have to have something that backs that up, because if they don't, it's some bullshit. It's not something that I can really digest. If you don't have any documented proof that shows, like, hey, you have dealt with these challenges, this is what I'm noticing. Sometimes when you are hit with this is the outcome. Like, they have to have some documentation, and that's how you really know it's constructive criticism, because they're giving you examples. If they don't have examples, this is a personal thing. You understand me? Thank you very much. Now, on your end, you need to have documentation of your own success. If your job is production based, you need to know what you are producing. Do you understand? Do not get caught without documentation of what your analytics look like, without your numbers. My job as an operations director is production based. So I have to know what every last office produces each month, what the numbers are each day, how many patients they're seeing. All those things have to be documented. Okay? They have to be documented, and they have to be given to my boss, my CEO, so that he can say, okay, this is where we are for the month. This is where we are for the quarter. This is where we are for the year. So I make sure that information, that I have it as well. Do not depend on them to have all this information for you. You need to be tracking it as well. If you are someone who works in customer service, ask for the rate that you are answering phone calls, the speed. How long does it take you to resolve situations? How long does it take for you to satisfy a customer? You need to ask those questions, and you need to make sure you have it so that when it's time for a review, you have something to fall back on. These are my times. This is my analytics. This is my production. This is what I'm doing, because a lot of times in performance reviews, a raise is attached. So if you've been with the company for at least a year, more than likely when they review your performance, they're going to be reviewing your pay as well. Now that we have the documentation that is necessary, now that we have sat with our emotions, now we're able to critically think about what is happening. We need to be able to have a difficult conversation. Do you understand? The difficult conversation where you are clarifying what is requested, you are clarifying the questions that they have. If you are going to respond emotionally, you need to make sure you wait until the next day, until you have some time to digest. And that's okay. That is okay. But you do not want to lead with your emotions when you start talking about the feedback that is given. You always want to make sure that your lead or coming to them in a place of a clear head. Okay. After you have dealt with the emotions of the negative review, after you have sat with the constructive criticism or personal attack, either or, it's time to have that discussion. Okay. Clarifying questions. What are they expecting of you? And our next step is turning it around. Y'all, this is like the implementation of what was given to you is the best thing that you are going to be able to do for yourself. Because when someone tells you something that is constructive, you understand, to your career, and they say, this is what we want to see from you, and you know that it's something that you can do, it is smart to do it. I'm going to tell you the God honest truth. I have seen where information was given to someone about how to improve a situation, and they decline the information. Even though they know that it's something that they can do that is very simple, but because they are stubborn, because they want to die on this hill, they commit career suicide. They really, really do. Because you decide that you are going to be firm on something that is so stupid, like arriving to work on time. That is a non-negotiable in the workplace. You need to be on time for work. And if you cannot, then you need to either evaluate what is happening in the moments before it's time for you to go to work, or you need to find you a place that works at a suitable time that you are requesting. If you can't get it from company A, then you need to go to company B. You need to go somewhere else. But it's hard when I see people not implement the things that they know they can fix. It's easier to just say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do that because that's what they want me to do. That is the most immature response that you can have, especially when you are trying to evolve and grow in your career. Now, if it's something that is absolutely ridiculous, like on a PIP or something like that, maybe you had a performance review and it turned into a PIP, that's something totally different, because we know that some of the standards on a PIP are high as hell and you can never meet them. However, there are some things that we can actually do, and every person is not irrational in their requests. I'm talking about your higher ups, your managers. Sometimes it is things that we can actually do, that we can actually implement, but we are being stubborn in the workplace because we just don't want to do it. We don't see it as necessary. Oh, I could talk about that for a long time, but we don't have long time today. Now, let's talk about what the manager's role looks like in all of this. So your manager plays a key role in you being successful in this. And if you are a manager, you need to hear this. You have to provide your team with resources. You have to provide your team with constructive feedback, okay? Constructive criticism. Create a safe space for them to have a dialogue with you. Ask those questions. Ask those hard-hitting questions of you, where they're requesting receipts for, when was I excessively tardy? When have I not completed tasks? When have I not done this? When have I not been supportive to a manager or to a customer? When have I not successfully ended a call? Whatever that thing is that your job does and you are criticizing a team member for it, you need to make sure you have evidence. You need to make sure you have a solution, and you need to make sure you provide the support, because that is how you effectively do a performance review. You have to make sure that your team understands what is expected of them in the end, because if they do not, more than likely they're either going to leave out of frustration, because people don't leave bad companies all the time. They leave bad managers because the people make it difficult to work there. And that's where we get to our next point, is knowing when to walk away. After you have done all that you can, this is for the team member. After you have done everything you possibly could to meet whatever this request is, to meet whatever the standard is for your particular position, and you just cannot do it, you need to know when to walk away. Because sometimes you are just not a good fit, number one. It doesn't always have to be negative, but if it is a negative work environment, if it is a toxic space, you need to know when to walk away. And that is something that everyone has to set for themselves. You have to say, this is my boundary. This is my boundary for me. This is my hard no. And you have to only know that. The only person who can know that is you. You have to know that for yourself. And now we're going to go over to our emails. All right. Our first email, it says, I need your help. I was physically assaulted at work. HR told me to lie about it. Then comes the harassment and hostility. Any advice? Betty. This is not the first email that I have gotten where there is some type of physical assault that happens at work. Immediately when the physical assault happens, you need to call the police. Do you understand? I don't give a fuck what your HR department, they do not supersede the police. They do not, like, your HR department They have guidelines of how they do things, but we have guidelines of how we do things. And the police, as a society, that is who you call if you have been assaulted. If somebody puts their hands on you, you need to call the police. I do not care what your employee handbook says. If there is a physical, sexual assault at your job, call the police. Do you hear me? Now, if you were told to lie about this situation, you need to have some documentation. Number one, because you need to go and see an attorney. Step one, baby, should have been calling the damn police. Don't ever let somebody put their hands on you and you do not call the authorities. Call an attorney. Okay? Then you deal with HR. Okay? That's your third step. HR, your manager, that's number 3. Immediately when the assault happens, call the police. And remove yourself, if you can, remove yourself from the environment. If somebody puts their hands on you, those are the steps you should always take. Now, because you skipped some and went straight to HR, you need to pedal back. I don't know how long this happened, if they have, or how long ago it happened. If they have some video evidence, if they have some proof, you need to go and talk to an attorney immediately. Do you understand me? I'm not joking. You need to talk to an attorney. Do not allow anybody to put their hands on you or sexually harass you inside of the workplace. Call the police. Even if it's your manager. They're going to get your ass up out of there anyway. So you might as well get the police involved and start a case. No, ma'am. No, ma'am, Betty. All right, and on to our next one. This next one is a little long. It says, "Hi, my name is Betty." We know Betty, girl. We know Betty, girl. I just recently started following you on Insta and Spotify. Thank you. I love listening to you because it gives me such a peace of mind. I have a complex situation that I need your advice about. I've been with my current employer for a little over 2.5 years. In October 2024, I signed a retention bonus stating that I would stay in my current position, job duties until October 2025. I work at a nonprofit, and the contract seemed to be randomly drafted by my supervisor. It was drafted because we had been asking for a performance bonus, and this was what we were presented with. I was reluctant to sign it because of a multitude of reasons: additional job duties with no reasonable pay increase, supervisor/director not finding acceptable candidates to hire to take on additional duties, coworkers and supervisors not working as much as me. Anyway, in between then and now, I acquired a certification so that when my year was up, I could be prepared to take on a role with another company and be paid more. We get raises every year, but I feel like I should be significantly paid more based on my actual job descriptions and the amount of work I've taken on. Well, since I've gotten my certification, I started applying to jobs, and surprisingly, I've gotten interviews. Recently, I had a second interview with my dream employer, and I think it went really well. My major concern is, what do I do if I'm offered a new position and I signed a retention contract? I know it was stupid to sign the retention contract, but honestly, I thought I would stay for another year. However, I've been noticing huge red flags that I don't think I can manage anymore, like taking on different program grant contracts, having even more work to do, and not any information if the grant or current program will be renewed into 2026. My supervisor has already told me that they most likely won't hire anybody else. Our office has 4 permanent employees, an additional part-time person that is paid full-time but cannot take on full-time duties. How are you paid full-time but you work part-time? No, I don't think I can take on another year of increased work. I think I have some leverage because of the necessary processes and procedures set in place by me, and I have been managed by me for the entire time I've been here. There is no one hired to take on these duties. I know I'm replaceable, but I think that the situation is unique. My current employer may not find a replacement for me, and I will definitely have to train one of my coworkers to take on my job duties. My plan is to act as a consultant or work part-time until October 2025 if my current employer will allow me to do that. I can try to get fired, but that most likely won't happen either. I might be jumping the gun right now, but I have had anxiety about this entire situation. My second interview was yesterday, and I just want to have a plan in place so that I can communicate effectively when needed. I've honestly been letting this employer play in my face because I'm leaving out a lot for the sake of the length of this email. God bless you, girl. Girlfriend Betty. First of all, kudos to you for recognizing that you are being played with. Okay. Now, I don't know exactly what state you live in, but let's look up the retention guidelines for the state of Michigan. Okay. When you sign a contract, a retention contract in the state of Michigan, let's see what the laws say in Michigan. All right, let's see what that looks like. Here's the thing with a retention contract, you need to review the terms. What does it say if you are going to leave the company early? If you leave the company before the time of your before the end of the contract, you need to read what the potential penalties are, and they vary. So I don't know exactly what your contract states, but in most of those contracts, you forfeit any bonuses if you have profit sharing or something like that. However, you need to read the penalties because they have to list the penalties of you breaking that contract. If the employer breaks a contract, there are certain things and guidelines that they have to follow, which are inside of your retention contract. And then for you, you're going to be more than likely to forfeit any bonuses that you would have gotten throughout the year. So if you receive any bonuses that are connected to your performance and you leave before this contract is over, you're not going to receive that. Okay. And if it's in a quarter, meaning like you leave in a certain quarter and you have already received a bonus, more than likely they can come back and take it. However, you need to discuss with an attorney what the outcomes are of this contract because they vary from state to state because there are state guidelines of what can be in a retention contract. Okay. And to me, a retention is kind of like a non-compete. Okay. Basically, they can put clauses in there that say you can't go to certain locations that's within 5 miles of this location. Maybe you cannot work at another competitor for another year or something like that. That's where you have to know what's in that contract. So pull it up, find you an attorney if you don't have one, and have them go over the terms with you, okay? Okay, thank you so much. And that is going to be it for today's podcast episode. I really, really appreciate y'all rocking with me. I hope that you have purchased your ticket for the live event that is on Friday. Or why do I keep saying Friday? It is on Saturday. And I'll make sure that I include the information in the information section of the podcast episode. I hope y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I will see y'all on the internet. Bye.